I think we can start off now. Hello, everyone. This is Sandeep Nair here. I'm the product manager for NPP from Cuscal. And today we're going to take everyone through the Cuscal Release 6 webinar contents and also take you through some of the items that you can already see as part of the scope and discuss their impacts, considerations from a client perspective, and also discuss timelines in this session. There have been some changes where we have had to go back and revisit based on some of the priorities being also changed from a scheme perspective, and we will go through that. And also we give an opportunity for the audience to ask questions and also provides guidance around what will be the next steps. So me and my team will help you get through all of these information today. And obviously, we want to give time for people to give us feedback, questions, queries, and there is a channel open for you to be able to post FAQs. And we will be responding to that either during the session or through written communication later on. Just getting into what we will cover today. So I think we have 4 components that we're going to be talking about today. Obviously, the first one is the International Payments Compliance IFT release, and this is we'll be looking at it from a Payee perspective, the compliance timelines and what are the impacts around those. We'll be looking at the implementation of the same impacts and considerations around the INB 18, the abusive message implementation. Payer porting is the third item. We'll look at implementation from an API perspective and from a payments hub perspective. And finally, the fourth item is more of a Cuscal specific item where we are now looking to move clients to a version 2 for the REST APIs from the V1 and from the version 1. And we'll also outline what are the impacts surrounding that. And like I said, once you can keep recording your questions using the FAQ feature, and then we will respond to that either during the session or later. To continue with it, I would now hand it over to Isha. Isha Nikre is from our team, and she is going to be talking to you about the IFT release and all of the impacts and considerations around that. Over to you, Isha.
Thanks, Sandeep. Yeah, I'm myself Isha Nikare. So I'm working. So I'm one of the BAs from the Cuscal. So I will be talking about the IFT side of requirements. So this diagram gives the overview of how the NPP comes into the picture for the international payments. So IFT is the International Fund Transfer Instruction, which is initiated by the offshore or the overseas data. And from the NPP perspective, it covers the final domestic leg of the settlement where the creditor gets the credit via NPP. So as you see in the diagram, so from the international payments perspective, SWIFT is one of the channels where we get the international message in the form of MT103 or CBPR plus, which when it comes to the Australian FI or the correspondent bank, it gets settled right now via RTGS into the creditor's account, customer account. But with the IFT coming into picture, the last leg will be settled via NPP with the introduction of new BO service code, which is SCTX BRDR. So apart from SWIFT, there are other channels where the international funds can be received from overseas. So right now they use SDE to settle the domestic leg. So with the IFT coming into picture, NPP will be used with this introduction of new BO service code to credit the customer account. So this is just at the high level where NPP fits into these international payments. Sandeep, thank you. So on this slide, we so it's majorly from the payee side of requirements, because from the compliance payee is the compliance. So this slide will talk more about what is the scope and the overall impact, and the documentation and the guidance. So from the scope perspective, receiving the EFT payment under the International Payment Business Service, which is SCT PRDR.01, as a final domestic leg of the international fund transfer request. So once this is received, responding to this EFT payment clearing request within the NPP SLA, which is a 3.5 seconds. Then one, so now while international payment can have quite a lot of information compared to what we have in the NPP pack set. So it is the responsibility with the payer participant to populate all the information from the international source message into the NPP pack set. And there are no new validations or no new rejections introduced as from the payee perspective to reject this EFT payment. So it will be a normal, the existing rejection reason codes will be reused. And from the return perspective, again, it will be the return process between the NPP payer participant and the NPP payee participant, and not from the end-to-end perspective, like not from the offshore data to the ultimate creditor. So with the NPP, because from the NPP perspective, the account should be NPP reachable. So in the IFT fund transfer request, NPP, the payer account details will be populated in the data, so that the NPP fund transfer can be initiated. So actual offshore data details will be in the ultimate data fields and not into the data fields. So that's majorly the scope for the IFT. Now, from the business impact perspective, for the payee participant need to undertake their existing screening for the sanction screening or the fraud screening, and other international procedures. Other internal procedures for receiving the FT payment before applying the funds to the creditor. So once the payment is accepted, before applying before crediting the funds to the creditor, this screening needs to be considered. Then clients also need to consider their own compliance and the applicable regulatory or reporting obligations like OSTRAC reporting with the acceptance of the FT payment via NPP. So from the technical impact perspective, we have enhanced V2 REST API for the FT changes. So it will have the additional fields which will be coming as a part of the international source message. From the SOAP client perspective, so current packset schema support all those fields. So from the payment message perspective, you in the wrap message, we will see the additional data getting populated in the NPP packset. Now, the another impact would be from the downstream systems perspective. So client need to assess the downstream system impact in terms of the data details, because the data details will be holding the actual NPP participant, maybe a business account or a suspense account, which they generally use for the international fund transfer, and not the actual offshore data details. So that should be from the downstream perspective. And then from the STIP account side, all the new accounts or the update to the existing account need to consider the new BO service code. So these are majorly the technical impact which we see from the payee perspective. So from the documentation side of things, we have SDK. We have updated the SDKs, and it's available in the Cuscal Connect portal for both map and wrap. Yes, for the wrap perspective, it's majorly consuming all those additional data by the payee participants so that it can be used for their screening and the reporting purpose. So that is all at high level from the payee perspective. So the next slide, Sandeep, sorry. Yeah. So that was for the IFT. Now this is for the INV 18 basic message. So this is a newly introduced investigation message for the this is again a general investigation initiated by the Payee bank to the payer bank for the offensive content which has been received in the payment. So if the payer sends a payment which has been settled but it has got the offensive content, then Payee bank can initiate a general investigation, and payer bank has to respond to that investigation. So this is so right now INV 11 is used for all the general investigations, which also includes the abusive message. But from the compliance date onwards, INV 18 will be used mainly for this offensive content. So from the business impact side, the INV 18, so the staff needs to be trained to use the INV 18 investigation instead of INV 11. And there could be a possibility from the that the NPPA may request payer participant in terms of understanding how they are handling this offensive message complaints from the payer participant side. So this is the business impact which we see at this stage. And from the technical impact, because this is just an investigation and there are no returns or expected from this investigation. So this is there is no technical impact or no API changes from the client side. So the changes will be majorly handled in the concourse to introduce INV 18 investigation. So we will be working on the user guide to provide the more detail on the INV 18 usage from the concourse perspective. So INV 18 is applicable for both payer and payee from the compliance perspective. So yeah, and it again, I think Kapil will talk more about the compliance dates. But this is one of the compliance requirement from NPPA. So this was about the abyss message. So I'll hand it over to Bala to cover the pair porting and REST V2 APIs. Thank you.
Hi all, myself Bala. I'm a BA as well in the Cuscal payments team. I'll run through the porting as well as the REST V2 API changes that's upcoming. So those who worked on Pay2 program earlier probably would already know, but then I'll quickly give an overview on this and then I'll move on to the impacts and considerations. So payer porting or NPP from customer terminology, they call it as transfer, payment agreement transfer. So how it works is that we'll have the existing customer approaching their payer bank and then requesting for this transfer. So then bank will like through Cuscal will request a porting ID, or also we call it as transfer ID from customer terminology. So this porting ID will be provided to the customer. So the thing with porting ID is like it can have a single agreement or multiple agreement linked to it. So you can have a single porting ID having all the agreements that customer has with the institution. They can take them together, right? So then the next step is that customer goes to the new financial institution and then says like, okay, I want to port my agreements to your bank or relationship. So then the new bank, what they would do is they will take the porting ID and then do a search through Cuscal through to the MMS, and then MMS will return a list of agreements that is linked to that porting ID. So based on the agreement data, if I can like say like, okay, these ones I support, these ones I don't support, they can choose to, our customer can choose to select whatever agreements they want to port. And then they say, okay, I want to finalize and then link them to this new pay ID or new account with a new institution. So once that selection is done by the customer, that's submitted back to MMS through finalized porting process. So then the agreements will be now linked to the new institution, new account, and then all the instructions and everything will start flowing into the new institution. Okay, let's move into the next slide, and we'll talk about high level like scope and the impacts. So as I said, yeah, it is to support the customers. And again, like at this stage, when the market hasn't got the porting support, the only way for customers to move to another bank and take their agreements with them is they have to request merchants to cancel the agreement, or they cancel the agreement and request the merchants to set up the their debits on the new account or new Payee with the new institution. So that's the only way. They have to cancel and re-establish and authorize. So that's a tedious process, right? So this will provide that benefit where customers can take their agreements along with them when they change their banking relationship. That's the key advantage with this. Then from the changes perspective, we have these porting APIs. We call initiate porting, search porting ID, and finalize porting, like I explained those steps. So these APIs or operations are already available in this API payer payment authorities. So what we had done is we have just disabled them, and it's not yet kind of enabled in the production. So these APIs are enabled now and then available in the UAT, but not in production yet. So these APIs will be consumed by your systems and then make this happen. Okay. Also, this payer porting functionality we have implemented in our Cuscal Payments Hub. So this again, you can see in UAT, it's available already. In case, let's say you are not ready to implement your channel applications yet, okay, then you can use this Payments Hub or as a backup mechanism. And also, we have got a kind of a confirmation from NPPA that in case our clients who wish to use Cuscal Payments Hub as the primary channel for their servicing the customers for porting, then NPPA has accepted that that could meet the compliance requirement. So that will give more time for building the channel changes on your side. So going to business impacts, yeah, it's mainly the channel applications needs to be enhanced, adding the initiate porting, and then on one side where you will get the porting ID and return the porting ID to customer, and then maybe alerts and notification and things like that related to that. Then on the other side, as a new FI, if you're accepting customers to move into your bank, there you would provide the option of searching the porting ID and finalize the porting. So you need to build those functions in the channel, and then again, NPP has provided clear customer experience guidelines. So you have to follow that and then build the channel application. So that's on the channel side, and then again, like from the process and training perspective, there are considerations in terms of how you especially when it comes to Payees linked to porting, we don't want to have any kind of often payment agreements, right? So there are considerations wherein, like, if customer is requesting to port the Payee as well as the agreements, we need to make sure that we educate the customer to move them together, or we have to suspend the agreements and then move the or link them to different accounts and things like that. So those kind of considerations needs to be take into account and then into the training and then the process building on your side. So the next point is around an investigation message. For porting, this is a new investigation message type, INV15, which is a request to port. So this is for, let's say, a pay customer is not interested to go to their old bank and request a porting ID from them. Okay, so what they can do is they can go to the new bank and then say, okay, I have my account and agreements with my other bank, so can you request them to, or can you port them for me? Okay, so it's kind of they can go to just new relationship and a request for that. So that request, what the new bank would do is that they'll send a request to port this INV15 investigation message to the old FI, where the old FI is required to do the porting initiation and provide the porting ID or the transfer ID as a response to that investigation request. So handling of this receiving the request part is mandatory, whereas for you to send the investigation to another old institution to request the porting, that is optional. So now we're building both the functionalities. So like we will be using BHMI Concurse application for managing the dispute and investigation. So it will be available there. In terms of sending the NV15, we would be using a combination of Payments Hub as well as BHMI Concurse. So this functionality is currently being built and it will be made available in UAT soon. Okay, so moving on to technical impacts, it's straightforward. Like we have these APIs, you need to integrate with those if you're building the channel application. And then on the other small thing is that because this would involve these various actions, so there will be mandate or payment agreement notifications as well being that will be sent out to your notification endpoint. So from the technical side, you need to be prepared to receive these trigger codes. These are the new trigger codes related to porting. The M ones are the notification received from MMS. The P series ones are the ones where if your staff perform any action in our Payments Hub, so those actions will be sent as notifications back to notification endpoint. It follows the similar process that already exists today for Pay2 agreement creation, amendments, and so on. Just it extends the triggers to porting process. Okay, so in terms of the documentation, I already mentioned about this guidance where we're saying we got that approval from NPPA. It meets the mandatory requirements, compliance requirements. So you can use the Cuscal Payments Hub until your channels are built. And in terms of documentation, we have the developer guide already available. Swaggers are available. Then we'll be updating the self-certification test back and other documents that will be released soon. And again, Kapil will talk about the dates next. So yeah, we will now move on to the REST APIs. So this is applicable to our clients who are using our REST API suite. So here as well, we would have already started using the version 2 REST APIs because as part of Pay2 functionality, we had made that available in the version 2. So, but there could be chances that you're still using version 1 APIs for some of the services, some of the operations. So what we are now doing is that along with this release, we are like advising you to switch all the APIs, all the operations to version 2, because that's our future roadmap that we will be maintaining and then releasing the upcoming changes in the version 2 APIs only. Right. So like IFT that Isha walked us through, the changes for IFT payments will be made available on version 2 APIs only. So that's the direction we are taking. So that it will be like easier for us to maintain and then for everyone to align to one version. So business impact wise, there is no functionality or any kind of changes to that, impacts to that. So all the version 2 APIs works exactly like version 1, and there is a one-to-one correspondence between the existing operations and the new operations. So it wouldn't be any change from business process wise. So on the technical side, it will be a change in terms of the field names. What we have done is we have standardized the version 2 APIs to align with the other version 2. So in terms of the field names and then the URI endpoints, we have kind of streamlined them. So technically, you would need to make the change in terms of changing from version 1 payload to version 2 payload naming, and then the URI changes to point to the version 2 API endpoint on our side. So you can probably like combine the IFT development along with this change. That's one suggestion. And then also we will provide the mapping document in terms of the field names in version 1 and what is the corresponding data field names in the version 2. Okay, so that's on the APIs. Now I'll hand it over to Kapil. He will talk about the timeline and the next steps. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon to everyone. I need to wear my glasses to look at the screen. But yeah, I just wanted to walk you through the compliance timeline that is there. So from a compliance release 6 perspective, the swaggers, the SDKs are available on the Cuscal Connect. Yes, if with regards to core banking systems, most of the core banking system across the IFT rollout that is there. Also, from a perspective, we're happy to work with them separately if they've got any directly they can connect to the NPP product, but that's where the timeline is. The solution will be available for the APIs work by the 30th of July. Well, and for the INV 18 abusive messages, the dispute screens will be available by 30th of September. Post that, we can book in the client testing window to do the testing, which is the same way how we've rolled out the earlier compliances. From a identified institute perspective, the go live date is April 24. Our solution as participant needs to go in December. And during the December, there's also a PAG upgrade, which is more internal to Cuscal. We will be upgrading the PAG as part of by December 1st. That is there. With regards to the payer porting, the Cuscal hub is already available in the UAT environment for the clients, and we will be pushing it live very soon. With regards to the APIs for porting, it's already available in UAT, and with regards to the INP 15, the Concourse solution is available, and the UIs will be available. The hub UIs will be available in UAT very soon. The go-live date, we're again looking in between July to September, based on the direction that we go ahead from NPPA that we would have from that perspective, so that the go-live date for the payer porting has been shifted from June 2023 to June 2024. So we would need to get some further information on when can we go live with it, and so we'll share that communication with you separately through our monthly bulletin. And with regards to the Osko harmonization, there is no tentative direction or dates that's been given, but we're assuming it will be somewhere around October or end of the year is where the Osko thing is, and we will be reaching out to you or providing further information on the Osko harmonization going forward. If you want to go to the next slide.
Yeah. So in terms of what we plan to do for next steps, I think there were some queries around. So obviously the video recording of the webinar and the topics that we covered, and the copy of the slides will be available. And we'll also send this out separately to any clients who have missed out on coming or being part of this meeting to be sent out as part of the monthly bulletin. As mentioned earlier, the documents and specifications are uploaded onto the Cuscal Connect portal. So the SDK for SOAP, Swagger for REST clients, and the business considerations. So basically, there have been a lot of questions that have been asked, and we have recorded all of those. What we would do as an approach is to kind of document all those questions and feed that as an FAQ document, so that all of the attendees here and all of the clients who later look at the documentation can go through the same questions and get all of our responses. So we have recorded all of the questions that have come through. We will document responses to them and send it out also, not only to this group which has attended, but it will also be available in the Cuscal Connect along with video recording of the webinar. The FAQ content will also be available. And a copy of the slides that we did today. Apologies for some of if the audio content was not great during the first. We tried to correct that, but that couldn't be done. But from the content of the slides, and if there are any questions from all of the content that we covered today. And generally any questions further on any of the content once you're able to view the slides and be able to go through them. We will come back with all of these responses, and this will be available for you, as I said, as a separate download, which will be available on the Cuscal Connect portal as well. And obviously, if there are any questions that you have, then the email address for the NPP product team is available. So please send through your queries once we have got some time to digest the content, and obviously based on if there are any further questions, we'll be happy to get back to you with clarifications on those. Okay, I think that's all we had for today in terms of covering for the webinar content and what we wanted to cover in terms of release for the release 6 functionality. Like I said, if there are any further clarifications required on any of the content, please reach out and the product team will be happy to send you the responses for that. And for any of the documentation, we would also want the documentation to be reviewed, and if there is anything missing either in any of those artifacts, please do come back to us. As far as the questions about the CBS providers are concerned, we'll obviously be aligned with them before we go with the solution into UAT. We will be in touch with them. If there is any disconnect on that front, please make sure you reach out to us if you're not hearing about this from your CBS providers. That's all. Thank you everyone for attending, and we will come back to you with more communications as we have mentioned in the next steps. Thanks to the team and thanks to everybody for attending today. Goodbye.